Okay, this is me. There's my P.O. box as well as my internet site and my email. I wanted to start out today with this picture. Once I saw it, I absolutely loved it. This is my sister-in-law's father. And this was the first time he met his great-great-grandson, Jacob. And when I saw the picture, I thought, you know, that's like the past, looking ahead to the future with the baby, but the baby is learning from his past. And that's what we all need to do with our relatives. So many people my age, or your age, they're sorry they didn't get a chance to ask their grandparents questions or their parents questions. And so we want to really stress the importance of African American genealogy, not just African American, but no matter what nationality you are. You know, we all have different, we have a major DNA, like my major is African, but then there's also European, almost as much European as there is Iberian, French, German, whatever. So it's good to learn about all nationalities. My mom, she used to say she preferred us to marry black, but she would like for us to learn about different nationalities or even date men of other nationalities. But she wanted us to know, not get out there, but she just wanted us to know and to understand and to deal with all. Her dad looked like he was white. He often said he was white. But you know, we were like, yeah, okay, grandpa. But we had to learn about that. We always knew he said he was Indian and he was Irish. Okay, all right, that's how you feel about it. But anyway, so I asked questions. And when a lot of us grew up, you weren't supposed to ask brown folks their business, am I right? You might get a hand across the mouth because, you know, people had so many things to hide. And so with that next one, slide. Secrets, lies, gossip, and the truth. It's in every family. People will say, oh, that family's dysfunctional. Yeah, we'll take a look at you. 4 fingers are pointing back at you. Your family was dysfunctional. But it's not dysfunction, it's life. It's just the way life is. And the usual suspects, who, what, why, when, where, and how. You need to answer those questions. You know, when you're going to get into your genealogy or you're going to help somebody else with their genealogy, what is it that you really want to know? Are you trying to dispel a rumor? Are you trying to get to the truth? My twin sister and I, we used to argue, fuss, and fight over the same incident. Well, no, it happened this way. No, it did happen that way. You know, and finally it just occurred to us, wait a minute. It did happen the way you saw it, and it also happened the way I saw it. We just had 2 different perspectives about the same situation or the same event or whatever. She'd come away with one idea and I'd come away with the other. So that ended the fight. So, I mean, why do you need to know? I had an auntie, she used to call all across the United States, don't tell Niecy nothing. She's trying to dig up dirt on the family. You know, and I was like, you know, I told my dad, I said, you need to talk to your sister. Tell her I already know her dirt, but I haven't told anybody else. But everybody else was trying to tell me. I mean, it wasn't something just crazy, but she didn't want her son to know who his real father was. So anyway, some people may not like it that you're doing this, and you might get a lot of resistance. You know, our mom, she didn't particularly want us to learn. She didn't tell us anything about Mississippi growing up, other than she never wanted to go back there again. That she'd rather die than had stayed there. So they sent her out to California when she was about 16, because she was like, kill me, because I'm not staying here. So she came out here, and all of us were born and raised here in Sacramento. You're going to have to be ready to discover some things don't line up with what you were told, even by your parents. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. So a secret will ruin your life. You're trying to keep a secret, it's inevitably coming out. So deal with it. Talk to your family about it. even I tell adoptees, you know, when you're trying to find your family, make sure you're the kind of person they'll be proud of. You might not be proud of them, but you make sure you know who you are. Learn as much as you can so that they'll be proud to see you once they do. So, and sometimes it doesn't happen that way. I've had cousins tell me, oh, you know, I have a record for this and a record, you know, been in jail, whatever. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's what happened in the past. Let's get to know one another now. It may not be your ace, boon, and coon, so to speak, or hang out with you on a regular basis, but you're still a blood relative. So you're going to find out stuff about yourself in the process. You might like it and you might not, but that's life. You're no different than anybody else. And I'm sure when you watch those programs with Dr. Gates and you see how people find out things about themselves, they didn't know they had African blood or didn't know they were related to kings or queens. I'm always surprised at all the celebrities that don't know anything about their lives or their past histories or anything. And how will it impact you? You have to be prepared to say, that happened then, but this is who I am now. So if you're going to be afraid, don't do it. And I'd still say do it and just deal with it and say, you know, I used to argue with my mother. Oh, I mean, we had that butt-head relationship. And then on the other end, it would be just as loving and kind. You better not say anything about my mother or about me to my mother. But I tell you, sometimes I just say, both of our parents are deceased, and I'm like, Mom, sorry, sister. Sorry you had to go through that. You know, I did get a chance to apologize over the first guy. So anyway, we're going to go ahead now. Even if it's your background isn't African American genealogy, you still need to know your history. Now, in high school, I didn't want to participate in history or government because way back then they were saying, oh, blacks don't participate in government. Blacks rarely vote. All they did was chop cotton, you know, and get beat. And I was like, I don't want to hear that. So I just refused. I said, flunk, because I'm not participating. Because you can't answer my questions. Thank God they didn't, and I graduated. But anyway, a lot of people will say, okay, everything started in Africa. Well, possibly, because when you look at the maps, you can see how everything fits in. It's all one land, how it used to be. I know when the one term was it Pangea? Yeah, Pangea. And there are other terms for it. Let's get that little plane back. There are other terms for it, but specifically for African Americans, this is the routes they took, going from Africa to here, sending them back to the United Kingdom. We found out that we had Asian in our ancestry, total surprise. And I looked it up, what was the history of it? And the Iberians, or the Portuguese, they would go to Asia, purchase sex slaves, and bring them back to either their African slaves or their Portuguese soldiers. So there's a lot of us who may have Iberian in it, and especially when they were taking them across to the United States. Over there to the right, it shows the different parts of West Africa, namely that they brought many of the slaves from, and taken them to Brazil. If you just follow the little lines on here, you can see where they were going. So many of us, when we get our DNA, they came from out of here. So many of them. And a lot of them were sold by other African chiefs. Okay. Yeah. So it wasn't just Europeans going to Africa, snatching anybody they could find and running off with them. But they were marched from different areas to that port right in here called Elmina. Has everybody heard of that port? Elmina. Elmina is right about in there. And that's where they shipped it out. I went to Ghana, but I hadn't heard of Elmina at that time. So I would like to go because that was the last time a slave saw Africa, was in that dungeon, and they were being marched out to boats. Okay? And this is like a 17th century, 18th century, what the countries were at that time. Like Guinea-Bissau right there, Sierra Leone, Liberia, where the slaves, some of them came back here, and here's Ghana. A lot of them came out of here. And there's Cape Verde. That was a mixture of Africans and French. Also, when you're doing your genealogy, it doesn't matter who you are. On this slide, this is where a lot of the Native Americans were late 1700s. All these Cherokee in here, that was North and South Carolina, Creek out of Georgia and Alabama, Choctaw, Mississippi, Chickasaw up here in Arkansas. Well, when Europeans came, this is where a lot of them landed. I know the Irish, our Irish ancestors came to Georgia, straight from Ireland to Georgia. So you need to kind of know, and this you could probably find, Paths of Diffusion, you can find that online, as well as maybe the library has that book. Another thing, another map you need to be aware of is how the country developed, how America developed over the years. Like right here, in 1790, Georgia was the entire state of what we now know as Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. So our great-great-grandfather said his father was born in Georgia, but he was born in Mississippi. It could have been nothing more than the boundaries changed, because it was all considered Georgia at one time. Okay. And so you'll see Oklahoma didn't even become a state. I don't know if it's over here yet. Somewhere in there. It was after 1900 before Oklahoma became a state, and it was known as Indian Territory. So some of you who have an Indian background, you can search in, the rolls online, and I'll show it to you in a little while, to find out if you do have Indian ancestors. And trust me, there are so many duplicate names. I was doing a genealogy for a lady that's 104. It just occurred to me to ask her, did she know it? And she says, no. She said, but I know I was named after both grandmothers. And I said, well, do you know if you're Indian? I said, she has a lot of moles all over her face, but her skin is, I mean, for 104, it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful brown color. And so she said she thinks, you know, someone in their family was Indian, and they lived in Oklahoma. Sure enough, I found a family, but I found 2 Henry Taylors, married to 2 Lucys, and they left Oklahoma and went to Los Angeles in the same area. But that one, I am so sure that it's hers, because the name she told me matched up, and so I ordered the file, and hopefully I get it this week. Because when you get the files, all of them had to give testimony as to why they should be enrolled in the 5 civilized tribes. You also need to know about the Trail of Tears in 1839, when a lot of them left and ended up in Indian Territory, Oklahoma. And you need to know, if you're looking for different states, I only went as far as Missouri, but Georgia became a state, no, it was a territory here in 1732, and became a state over here. Well, like I said, his father was born in Georgia, and he was born in Mississippi. It became a state in 1817. Could have been the exact same place. Okay. Now, for our friend up here in the front who's never done her genealogy, start with 1940. That's the latest one that's out. They release it every 72 years, so the next one's not due till 2022. So for my mom, Adams County, Mississippi, that's Natchez. That's where she was from. So, here's my grandparents, Willard and Bertil. You're gonna always find it spelled a whole bunch of different ways. And my mother's right there. She was 5 years old. No. Oh, was she 15? She should have been 15, yeah, right there. In 1940. So before they died, they was at least mom and dad could see themselves as little kids and who their neighbors were. And you notice here, here's some huts right here. That was my grandfather's cousin, or in-laws. And Bertil, this is her dad, married to grandpa's sister. They met when they were 8 years old when, that's the name right there. Bert Caston. He was divorced with a little girl, Bertil, and he met Margaret, and they got married. Well, her family came down from Mississippi, some part of Mississippi. She had an 8-year-old brother. He had an 8-year-old daughter. So they grew up together, and my grandparents. So this would be, Bert would be my great-grandfather. So when you're looking around, if you have any kind of knowledge, and if you're not sure, just you can look it up. Start searching that person. And then you go backwards. That's how you find your people. Now we're going to go back to 1930. There's Wilbur again. There's Bertil. There's my mom. She's 5 years old, and I have a picture of her when she's 5 years old, sitting on the stool. And there's Bert and Margaret again. This is Grandpa's sister. So here we got Hunt, Pickett, Caston, Higginbottom. They were married. That was her cousin. Grandpa's auntie. She was in sessions by that time. So you begin to see different people. So now we're going to go back to 1920. Where's Wilbur? Hunt, he's right here. Then you see, there's his parents, Charles and Eula. So now you've got, so now I've got my great-grandparents. And Eula's that little old lady over here somewhere. And when I met her, you know, you weren't supposed to ask those questions. Well, it was 1958 in Mississippi. And she's got her hands folded. She's looking at me and Dolores like, man, there's really more to you. And now we were looking at her, we crossed our arms, we were looking at her. And I was like, why do you have blue eyes? Oh, she looked at me, she turned her head and she walked off. We heard the whole time we were in Mississippi, we were 8 years old. Man, didn't you ever teach your kids nothing? So my mom was getting in trouble the whole time. So, okay, I've got Wilbert's parents. Now I'm going to back it up to 1910. And the ages, they're going to be different every single time instead of 10 years old. So, here's Wilbert again. This is his sister, Bertie. That's not his wife, because he's only 5. This is Bertie, Aunt Sally. She's on the tintype over there. I have a copy of the tintype picture. So there's Charlie and Eula. Okay, well, let's back this up. I don't know why I don't have 1900 up there. But now I find Charlie here. He's 44. Now I find Charlie living with his parents. So these are my 2-time great-grandparents. So that's how you know. When you see people living in the same area, there's the sections again. They're normally related. Or one of the wives is a relative. So there's a lot of information, a lot of clues. So like I said, here's Dad. He said his father was born in Georgia. She said her mother was born in Kentucky. Now we got another avenue to check. So as long as you keep backtracking, and now we knew the slave owner because we were always told that he fathered our side of the family, my mother's side. And so I found him. Now, I found him also on the census, but something different that I found was in 1836, he was selling 20 slaves. Well, who could that be? Because our grandparents and all of those stayed in that family, or stayed on his plantation, which was really a farm. But then here's Henry Hunt here. I'm finding out other information. Zacchaeus or ram bear, sold to Henry Hunt a 15-year-old girl. You can bet she was either pregnant when he sold her or pregnant soon after. And her name was Mariah, age 15. Sold for $450. That might not make you feel good if you think if you have children or grandchildren. What happened to her? And as it turns out, I heard Rick Jennings, everybody know him? He was on city council and something else. His family were ram bears. They're slave owners, and I told him, he was at our annual genealogy seminar, and I said, I have something for you. You're not going to leave. And I said, don't leave, I'll be right back. And I drove home, got a copy of it and brought it back to him, and he was like, you have got to be kidding me. Because look at the date. What is it? It's up there, I think it was like 1811 or something like that. 23 million. Can you believe that? Thank you, God, that's not me. Another clue. It's called slave schedules. The slaves aren't named, but their color, their age, male or female. So looking for my dad's relatives, I found this, 1860. And John N. Griggs says only following slaves. He was a judge twice, but his picture is the only one that wasn't up. His son was a judge. And then here's the slave owner with his wife and children, and then all the slaves that he owned. Now, he had a teacher there in 1860. He wasn't teaching the slaves. That was against the law. He was teaching his kids. And so, right here, it says a baby, 5.5 months old, in 1860. They said he was black. He wasn't. Here he is right here. And when he died, his death certificate, that was my dad's grandfather. When was he born? March 1860. That's him. And his mother is right here. It says mulatto, but she was Indian. She could have been Indian mixed, but Daddy remembers a picture where she's sitting on her hair and the rest of it was on the ground. And he was fair-skinned and had green eyes. So you hear things. Other people will tell you things. Once you start finding out people, especially like on ancestry.com and Family Search, which is a free site, familysearch.org, that's the Mormon site. Ancestry.com is about $19, $20 a month. So I have both of them. But if I can't find something on Ancestry, I'll find it on Family Search. I don't know why, but they have all the records. Now I found his name was Levco. I found his name was Leverett, Levco, and LC. And he was a frisky dude. He was married 5 times. But he would take a man to court in a minute after emancipation over a bale of hay, over a bale of cotton, over anything. Stolen wagon wheel. Because he knew how to read and write when other people didn't know at the time, former slaves. So when he turned 50, he got religion. And then he got ordained. And so this was, I believe, 1903. Yeah. On the 19th day of April, he was ordained. And so I transcribed it, because that's, I wear these glasses trying to read all those like fish and working on the computers and stuff. So, but somebody else sent me this. You make friends on the internet. You never argue with anybody. I don't care what you think. One person I know found a lady whose family owned her family. The lady had all the records. She gave her names and dates and everything else. And once she got everything, she turned around and cursed the lady out because they owned her family. I was like, are you kidding me? This woman has helped you, just handed it to you. So that's not a good thing to do. I still correspond with the slave owners' descendants on the other side. And they're in Australia, Ireland, Canada. The lady in Louisiana, I think she was contacting me just because she just couldn't believe. She says, there's no way my racist folks would be involved in this education. And I was like, really? I said, well, then you're not ready to see my grandparents' picture. And she was like, no, let me see it. And I was like, no. I said, I'll show you his sister. And so I emailed it to her. Never met her, but I emailed it to her. And she said, that lady's straight up white. I said, no, she's not. And she said, well, I can see the Indian in her. And it's Aunt Julie right there. And that little purple. First picture. Yeah. That's Aunt Julie, my grandma's sister. And I said, no, she's not. And so she said, you know, they used to call us names when we were little. Am I black? I was like, she said, my uncle swears up and down that they're not related to any black people, but you know what he said. And she says, and my grandmother told me, don't go looking for something because you might not like what you find. I said, oh, where's your grandmother from? She said, oh, she's Armenian. I said, really, Armenian? When did the Armenians land in Mississippi? She was like, I'm black. That's why they called us names. I was like, talk to your grandmother. I had no idea. And she pushed and pushed and pushed for me to get the DNA. And she had taken the DNA of all of our family, and the very same uncle that said he wasn't related to us, he had 10% African in him. He likely had a heart attack, and I'm trying to tell her how to calm him down. No, okay. So, these are documents, I mean, they're just priceless to find and to have. And when I do family reunions, my dad's family didn't know anything about it. Every time we would fly somewhere and we would meet them, they would just be in tears after I did the family history. So, another man, I never met him. I was asking, he had posted some marriages online. And I asked him, I said, well, look for this Griggs, go, see if you can find him. He sent me about 5 pages of Griggs marriages. Now, I told you, let go a few of his 5 marriages. This is when his first wife. No, that was the second wife. Oh, wait. He married Phyllis first in 1822, and I actually have their divorce record. He accused her of being with another man. Well, she already had 3 kids when he met her. And my auntie told me, she said, Grandma Phyllis said she wanted a new dress. And he told her, no, you can't. Now, granted, they got married in 1822. They were both of them. And she was holding Daddy's dad. And she said something about if one man won't, another man will. And they broke up after that. So, and the rumor was that he had 2 sisters living in his house and had kids by both of them. But now my auntie, we won't be looking this up. She was saying, don't say that about my granddad. That can't be true. That just can't be true. She said, well, I knew the old man. So she said, don't tell me that can't be true because Lev didn't die until 1950. Thank you, God. Even though he was born in 1860, so I could see and didn't know who gave the information. It was his daughter. So it turned out to be true. Right there, the second wife was her sister. And they had a bunch of kids and she died. So he married somebody else. So, but anyway, you'll find those different records, which is just fun. You know, look, I got records everywhere. I've got bins with stuff in it, or copies of it. And you can get the actual records. So, here's Lev again. Okay, same one. That's it, I'm gonna try. Okay, here's the actual marriage license. Lev and Phyllis. He was 21, she was 23. And she already had 3 kids. So like I said, this was 1822, so it's real possible it was right after emancipation, because when you turn 13 or if not before, black girl didn't stand a chance, you know, no matter what age it was. When he married his third wife, he had to sign a guardian bond to be the one to take care of them. You'll find those two. Of course, they got divorced. Now, we're going to go into something else. But these are just different documents that are out there. They're online, or you can, most counties, Board of Health, vital statistics, you can ask for death certificates. You can ask for different things. So if you find it on Ancestry, I met a girl through DNA, and I kept saying, okay, we're third cousins, but she's got the same names. So I contacted her, and she told me this was her grandfather, what her grandfather's name was, and her grandmother, great-grandmother had married him, and she said, I said, did he ever serve in the United States colored troops in the military? She said, I don't know. I said, well, you know, we decided to go to D.C. at the last minute to go see Obama get sworn in on that second one, like froze to death. But anyway, I told her I found the card and I was going to run over to the National Archives and look up his pension. I mean, we had less than an hour to do it. And the pension card, it will tell you where the records are. So the name of the soldier was Leighton Hammonds. His widow was Amelia Hammonds. He first filed 1898. She filed after he died to keep the monies coming in. And these are the numbers that they have to have. If you order it from there, or if you're there from there, because you have to order it in the morning and then they'll bring it back in. They'll tell you to come back up in about an hour, hour and a half. It's the original records. I mean, you were touching records from 1860. Yeah, you can find them on Ancestry or Family Search and there. Sometimes when you go in their pensions, they have all this information that they have to give in order to obtain that pension. So when they brought the pension down, this is what he said. His name was William Leighton Hammond. When he was born, near a Gulf, no city, near a Gulf, in Warren County, Mississippi. It's like, what? I thought all of them were from Franklin County. Then he was at John Conyers plantation on the river. I've yet to find it, but it's probably something else now. When he enlisted in the colored troops, 1864, Vicksburg, all these underlying things, those are clues. At the time of his enlistment, he was enslaved. He was still a slave. Then when he was discharged, then he went to Port Hudson on Bill Sims' place, 3 miles from Port Gibson. And he relocated to Roxy in Franklin County and married Amelia Mason in 1869 in Franklin County by, I don't know why it was so important, by a white minister. He stated she had 3 kids when he married her, Amanda, Ferdinand, and I know this is Nina, but I don't know what this means. I don't know if it's a J, a S, or whatever. So what did I do? Okay, he married her in 1869 in Franklin County. I went to the 1870 census. And there the names are, it's spelled a different way, Hammonds, without the D. And I've also seen it as Hammond. Okay, so there's Amelia, there's Amanda, there's Ferdinand, and then the third one. Well, there's some Starks there. That's the family name. The Normans and the Griggs, those are like intermarriages in the family, that one cousin's relative married another person. But they were by marriage every time. This is by marriage, not. Now there you're going to find marriages between relatives, between cousins and uncles and whatever. You're going to find it, so don't be shocked when you find it. And so I ordered from Franklin County, Mississippi, his death certificate, because they gave the date. Now they spelled Leighton a different way. This is him. He supposedly had blue eyes, and he was, as a baby, he was sold 3 different times. like getting him out of wherever he was born. So he never knew who his parents were. And this is William that he married in 1870. Isn't that cute? Isn't that perfect? And it tells you about 80 years old, but don't know his birthplace, didn't know his parents, and his wife signed it. So who should know it? She should. And so when he died, everything is right there. These are things you can obtain online. Making telephone calls to the different county vital statistics, get birth, death certificates. Now this pictures of my family. Right here, the first one is our mom, Amanda. She was named after her slave grandmother. And she hated that fact. I was like, why? Amanda's a nice name. I didn't like them calling me Nanny. This is her parents. This tintype is Grandpa's two sisters, our dad, relative, Aunt Julie, Grandpa's other sister. This picture I inherited from Aunt Julie. She only knew 4 things about this man, Uncle Peter. My mom didn't even know. Most of the family didn't know who he was. And the children of former slaves, Deck and Amanda, Charlie's parents. She looked like Deck with the Indian and black. He looked like mother. And so I ran it down, I made friends online. One girl, she said, she was looking for the slaves from Franklin County. I was like, nah, why does she want to know that? But then I contacted her. I said, okay, I'm a descendant of those slaves. What is it you'd like to know? Well, it did turn out she was black. I didn't know that for a long time. But she said every time she looked for her family, this name, Peter Hunt, kept popping up. The soldier right here. He was a slave. His daddy was a slave owner, the Hunt that sold all those other slaves. His dad was a slave owner, and his mother's name was America, and they lived in a town called Liberty. Is that ironic or what? So his sister was my great-great-grandmother. I have nothing but census records for her because she died when she was about 36 or 33. So he finished raising her children. I ran that information down till I found him on the African American Museum in Washington, D.C. that Colin Powell initiated, building that wall with all the names of the soldiers from the colored troops. And I wrote this book, A Mulatto Slave, The Events in the Life of Peter Hunt. And on the front, I did everything in a shade of gray, grayscale, because we're told things about our own history, about our own family, if we don't know, and it's always a shade of gray. But on the back, the words are in red and black. And that's because the white people and black people got together and they share the same blood. That's why I put that in red. Okay. And so when I went to D.C. and we went to go see the wall, they had this lady, dressed as a slave woman and him as the colored troops, and they actually escorted me across the street. I could still cry right now at the drop of a hat. I felt like I was going to meet Peter and go to his funeral at the same time. That was so heavy. I mean, that was such a feeling, and then we went and found his name on the wall. And it was incredible. But now you don't have to fly to a city, fly to a rural, or drive to a rural country somewhere in Arkansas, Mississippi. You can do it online. I don't think that I can go back to Mississippi or Arkansas because we go in there and say, I'm looking for such and such, and they're like, what? By the time we're going through everything. And we said, oh, well, we got to leave today. Sure enough, we had to go back. And she said, I thought you were leaving. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot one thing, but we're on our way to the airport. It's like, yeah, I'll be here and go back. And one man in Mississippi was so upset that I had the information that he said, where'd you get this information from? I said, online? He goes, that's our federal government. And I walked around and I looked that man in his eyes. And he said, no, Mississippi, you're not supposed to do that. I walked and I looked him dead in his eye. And he knew I saw he was a relative. He had the same ice blue eyes my great grandmother had. And I said, and my mother's sitting there. By this time, she's petrified, terrified. And I was like, come on, Mom, we gotta go down. I said, and they never found the book I was looking for. And they have all the books from that time this little liberty was formed. But they couldn't find that one. I knew they hid it, but I already had a copy. I just wanted to see the original. And so he said, well, nobody been no problems, Jam. Everybody was just trying to make a living down here. I said, I didn't come here to start trouble. I just wanted to see where my relatives come from. I said, every time I drove through this little town, heading to Natchez, I said, I always got this peace, a really peaceful feeling came over me. I got back to Natchez and my mom's cousin knew I had been there. We snuck off. Knew we had been there and said, don't you realize that's the most racist town in the entire state of Mississippi? I said, I didn't know that. He said, I know you didn't. I said, well, how did you know I was there? He said, how do you think I know? Somebody called and told me you were there. But my grandpa's relatives, they told him, you come here as the Klan, bring the dead wagon with you, because a lot of you going to leave here dead. So they knew who I was related to, and you just didn't mess with their women, not today. But anyway, so I told my mom, come on, we got to get out of here. We can't. He said, well, how did you get here? I said, oh, on that long road down there with no lights. I said, Mom, come on, we got to go before it gets dark. And him and that other guy kind of looked at each other, and I was like, come on, Mom. And she goes, I think they're coming after us. I said, well, they're going to be looking for us for a long time. I went all the way to another city, drove almost all around Mississippi to get back to Natchez. It was like, you never find me in the home to the river and said I hung myself. But anyway, these are documents. I went to a site called dogpile.com, write that down, and put in a name, an unusual name. If you have a family member with an unusual name, put it in. Now, Henry Hunt's father's name was Fitzmaurice. It's spelled like Fitzmaurice, but it's pronounced Fitzmaurice, and he's from County Tipperary, Ireland. 300 of them came over before the American Revolution. They didn't want to get in another fight with the Crown in England, so they decided to leave. But before they left, they bought up a bunch of property, and he left it in charge with his 3 sons. Now, the 3 sons didn't go back to Ireland because they weren't the oldest. They weren't going to inherit nothing from their father. So they stayed here, sided with the U.S., and joined the militia in Georgia. And so this is from Georgia. This popped up when I put Fitzmaurice's name in there. And 1795, that's a document where he went to court because his father had already returned to Ireland and he was doing the work for him. Whatever his dad told him to do, that's what he did. So the 3 brothers stayed here. That's a document. All these are clues pointing you to documents. Family history points you to documents. I thought I'd throw in here about this underground slave routes, waterways of travel. People didn't just say, oh, we're going over land to get to where we need to go. You need to know the waterways. Up the Mississippi, down the Mississippi. The White River was a big one. But especially if all your people were in the South, there's all these waterways. Pearl River, White River, all down in here. So you need to know those routes. But I know they left Georgia over the land on a 3-chopped way. Never heard of it. It's now defunct place. And that's how they got to Mississippi. But Henry Hunt was stationed in Mississippi Territory when he was in the War of 1812. So you're kind of like backtracking and getting these little dates of what was happening in history. That's why I have a historical timeline over there. What was happening even when our family were slaves? What was happening in the world? What influenced this? What influenced all this cotton production? The demand in England and in India. They were making fortunes. There were multi-millionaires in Mississippi and Arkansas, Alabama on cotton because there was such a high demand for cotton overseas. Now, they would get these little farmers to farm like a Henry Hunt never had over 20 slaves. When it got to 20, because of taxes, he would give the slaves to his children and grandchildren. So, in order to pay those taxes, sure, he made money, but who actually made money? Somebody in England. Abijah, whatever, Hunt. He was in Natchez, and he had hundreds of slaves, and he was very wealthy, multi-millionaire. When you go back there, yeah, this is from Natchez. I had to purchase that, put it in my book. Ooh, they charged me for it. But anyway, this is an actual Forks of the Road slave document. I didn't understand what it meant, but my grandmother, when we were kids back there, she wanted us to see it. She said, my people, what happened to my people? I always wanted to know who were my people. So, anytime I wish I could call her in heaven and say, Grandma, I found this one, Grandma, I found this one. Grandma, it was true. That was Grandma's son. Yeah. So, I have some other ones from Arkansas about selling top slaves, prime slaves, cooks, wenches, what do they call the really light-skinned women? There's a term, I can't remember it right.
Quadroon?
No, they have like quadroons, octoroons. My great-grandmother would have been considered an octoroon, 1/8 black, even though she looked white. She had blue eyes and black hair. Okay, now, I asked my grandfather, I must have been about 25. I said, Grandpa, I have a question to ask you. You look at me? I saw my grandma scatter that way, and my uncle, he was crippled. And he could walk, but he's still crippled. He got his wheelchair, and he was practically running out of the room. My grandpa, he looked at me, he said, Gal, you trying to ask me about my business? I was like, no, I just got 3 questions, and I will. Well, by that time, he was closer, you know, like on the scary movies, you be doing this, and all of a sudden you look, and somebody's closer. And he had his hand in his pocket, and I was like, now I know this old man is not about to shoot me. But I knew he always carried his gun in that pocket. I said, Grandpa, look, I'm only going to ask you once, and you only have to answer me once, and I'll never ask you again. By that time, he was almost nose to nose to me. He said, yeah. I said, are you trying to ask me about my business? I was like, Grandpa, I'm an adult. I'm not like back in the old days. Who else am I going to ask? Who else is going to tell me? I know what he thought I was going to ask me, but I didn't. But that's stupid. So I said, Grandpa, what was the real last name? If that Hunt wasn't Hunt, I've heard you guys say it was another name. And I said, and I don't even remember. That third one to this day, I can't tell you what the question was, but he answered it. And so he said it was, I said, and what was the Indian? He said, the name was Smart, Isaiah Smart, Choctaw. I still cannot tell you the third, the question or the answer. So while I was looking, here's a 1825 loan agreement. Henry Hunt borrowed all this money, what, $3,600, something like that. $3,153.21. He borrowed the money. I won't say who it was from because I need to check on it because that man founded the college. He borrowed that money And he had to say who the Negro slaves were. He mortgaged his slaves for the loan. He said, 3 Negro slaves, Lewis, about 32, Smart, about 30, Dennis, 18, which 3 Negroes came from the estate of Fitz Maurice Hunt, deceased. Fitz died in 1822. And so Smart, that would have been Decon's father. Decon's real name was Isaiah Smart. But he had to change it in order to marry one of the slaves. He had to agree to it, to become a slave of Henry Hunt, and to change his name to Hunt. So I had heard it differently. So it's like when you're trying to find the truth, you got to sort it all out. Who was he talking about? They weren't talking about my great-grandmother, they were talking about my great-great-grandmother. And this lady, Millie, she was in that family for a long time. And her kids, so she came from this guy's estate. I found all kinds of stuff on him. He gave his kids slaves as a gift. Can you imagine? Being given to somebody as a gift. And who had to pay the money back? The slaves had to work in order to pay the money back. So, but anyway, so that oral family history found the documents for it. So there's some other clues in there. Okay, Robeson, that's a clue. I can find this Maria, that's America. Henry Hunt changed her name to America. She was a little buddy. So here's Fitzmaurice Hunt. Deeding his slaves, willing his slaves to his children. So here's Henry Hunt, and that lists all his sisters. Okay. And he died September 9th, 1822. This is a church record. Here it is, Smart. It doesn't say a slave or the African like a lot of them are. It says Smart, a man of color. Okay? So these are all clues for your history. They are out there. It's like waiting for you to pick up diamonds, pull diamonds from the sky, pick up gold from the ground. And you're getting a feel, an idea for your family. Now here's after emancipation. This was so hard to read. So it's transcribed. The same lady that I told you she was looking for her family, Peter Hunt kept popping up. She sent me his death certificate. She sent me this. She sent me a lot of stuff. I said, oh, I got a reward for you. She said, no, girl, don't send me any money. I said, I'm not sending you money. I said, I have the actual picture of Peter Hunt. She started screaming. I started screaming. You know, when the telephone cards came out, we talked up 3 of them after that. So I took a picture and gave it to her. So, but notice here, it says, color is the names. This is after emancipation. Here's America. She now marries Josh. She has kids for both him and Henry Hunt while she was a slave. Now, every time I try and find this record, it's like it's somebody tried to erase it or line it out or something. Then, because I've since found this myself. Here's Beck. Here's Vanda. This is Millie, that same Millie that was in the wheel. She's now 65. And look at the colors. Black, yellow, copper color. That's what that sees. So that was the Indian mix. Or yellow, instead of putting mulatto, but I was told America was the white. So she was a mulatto. I mean, how good is that? As far as documents and documenting your family history, it's out there. Okay. Now, briefly on DNA. I am not a DNA expert. I'm going to tell you how it helped me. On our DNA sample, Dolores took 23andMe. I took ancestry.com. I also took family tree DNA. We wanted to see if DNA was true. So we used 2 different companies to see if they had the same. Family tree DNA said I was 3% East Indian. as in Hindu. I was like, that cannot even be true. So when I contacted them and told them that Dolores was both Native American and Asian, Family Tree eventually dumped that 3% into African American. So it's like, yeah, well, I won't recommend you to anybody. So our DNA came out basically 58% on the average African, 40% European, and that's when we said, Mama, did you forget to tell us something? It was like, how can that be? Grandpa who said he was Irish, it says ours is like 3% Irish. But checking, making friends on the internet, the Hunt family originally ran out of England to Ireland. And they didn't, so when the American Revolution started, they didn't want to get in trouble with the crown anymore because they kept picking the wrong side. So they got ran out as punishment. Now 23andMe says Native American plus Asian. Ancestry says less than 1%. My heritage doesn't even show Native American, it shows Asian. And said Chinese and Vietnamese. I'm like, what? These are all like trace amounts, but Ancestry has since changed. Now there's like French and German and Iberian and Scandinavian. It's like, dang, but they're trace amounts. So it roughly comes out about the same. And down here it's like traces of here in Africa. Seminoles, Scandinavian, England, British Isles, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and Iberia. Now, so whose DNA are you getting? Yours, theirs, ours. You're going to find out if you're full brothers and sisters or half brothers and sisters. I read something that the girls found out their dad had two women found out their dad had another son. He was Jewish. The boy was black. They were stunned. Then, when the other sister's DNA came in, she found out she had a different father. Her and her sister was half sibling. They're really having a hard time wrapping their heads around this. You know, daddy cheated on mama, well, mama cheated on daddy. So they're just so upset. And I thought, well, they got to work it out. They'll work it out. So these are the major sites. I would not get that African one. It's $300. And they cannot pinpoint you any closer than Ancestry or the other ones. Genesis.gedmatch.com. You might find out you got relatives who committed a crime 40 years ago. So I don't know if anybody was here in Sacramento when the East Area rapist was here. And that's how they caught him. Because these guys, they won't let the law enforcement check. GEDmatch are two old guys in Florida. And they've been doing it for a while. And because I thought they were like doctors, young guys working on the doctor things, so old retired guys. But they put it together. And that's how we caught the Golden State Killer, cold case crimes. And I emailed him and I said, what a wonderful thing you guys, they got the East Area rapist. And he was like, what? He sent me an email and he goes, what do you mean? I said, they used your algorithm to find, do all that stuff. To find it. He goes, I didn't know that. Tell me about it. So I sent him links from the Sacramento Bee and stuff. And then they had it on 60 Minutes about catching cold case crimes and stuff. And he said, well, what did you think when they found out? He said, I didn't know they found out until this lady emailed me. I was like, no. Okay. And then through the different sites, the traces are going to be different. And I'm just about done. And my simplistic way of doing DNA, if you find a fourth cousin, bump it down a generation. That means your third cousin. If you find a third cousin, bump it down, you share great-great-grandparents. I mean, this is for me, shooting from the hip. But it works every time. Now, this relationship terms, this once removed, twice removed, all this, I hate that. But it means, it says, two people are from different generations. Like you're your first cousin, you're in the same generation because you're 2 generations younger than your grandparents. So my mom's first cousin, Charles, is also my second cousin. But if I was to use the proper term, I would say first cousin once removed. It just means there's a generation difference. But other than that, I rarely use remove because it's too confusing. Just to say what it is. So that's a simple way to understand. And I think I got this off of, genealogy.com. Now, some of you, finally, I think that's it. You have Native American ancestry. You can now check online, search the Dawes Final Rolls, the 5 civilized tribes. Don't say Choctaw or Cherokee, just say check all of them. And when, like I said, I was doing the genealogy for the 104-year-old lady, she gave me all these names. And she said, now I had an Aunt Frank, and I don't know why we called her Frank. I said, maybe so. I sent for the packet. Well, it could be like, I want to make sure that that's it. Okay, and I'm not sure if you guys got one of these. These are all the online sources. All these things that I listed, I either got an ancestry, census, family search, find a grave, full free, you got to pay for that. Genesis, jetmatch.com, that's free. You just upload your raw DNA, and then you find more relatives, because everybody from all the different sites have uploaded their raw DNA. That's free, easy to do. And then you find more people. And there's, I didn't put it on here, but on GEDmatch, on the left-hand side, there's a letter L. You click on that next to a person's name, and you see all the people they're related to. So that's how I helped one of my cousins. He knew the girl was pregnant. He got sent to Taiwan or something. Met her at a party. She was underage, wasn't supposed to be there. He was in the service. He knew she was pregnant before he got his orders, and he could never find her once he got back. She couldn't find him. She knew his name, his birthday, and where he was from in Mississippi, that he was from Mississippi. I asked the guy, I said, how long you been looking for your dad? He said, I didn't want to know till this year. I got kids, but I just can't seem to keep the relationships. Huh? Oh, this right here? Yeah, I'm going to show you that next. I said, I got a cousin by that name. I said, but send me a picture first. I'm not going to even approach him. He's kind of irritable. And that every now and then he has to go because something bothers him so bad he has to go take a break for about a week or two. He sent me his picture, and I almost felt, I was shaking. I was like, she's like, what happened? And there it was. He was a spitting image of his grandfather, more so than his father looked like his father. And I had to track them guys down. I said, tell your brother, I need to talk to him. And I told, finally, that you're kind of weird, but anyway, I told one what it was about. She said, my brother been whining for years, and he had a child out there, didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. And he has a son. I said, yep, plus children. So I told the kid, yes, that's my cousin. Yes, he wants to hear from you, because he never knew. And I said, now I'm going to give you your ancestry. In case you guys don't get along, at least you know your ancestry. And I sent him pictures and everything. And him and his dad, they talk every day. And every now and then his dad sends me away. But he's still mad I got that 150-year-old picture, 60-year-old picture. So he said, he told his dad last week that he's going to change his name to his name. And so they're supposed to meet in July. Pray to God they make it. And this is a seminar coming up. I don't know if any of you have gotten the handouts. I ended up having to give them out yesterday because I was going to bring some today. Did Beth have those? Did she tell you if she had them or where they were?
She might have them at her desk. I can go check.
Yeah, because she's out sick. So if you want one of the handouts, get it from Beth, or I can bring some more down here tomorrow. But Patricia Johnson, she's going to talk about the slaves who were sold by the Jesuit priests in the 1800s to keep Georgetown University open. And then when people start saying, where are my relatives? They said, oh, the disease got them in the South. That wasn't true. She was a retired professor, and she found her slave ancestors were from Georgetown, and she said, so that's why my entire family was Catholic. It was Catholic priests who sold them. And her family got upset. They didn't want to know this. And so she's had to coax it, you know, your family, they don't want to know some of those things. So that's what she's going to talk about. There's a website you can check to see if any of your ancestors' names are on it. Karen Massey's going to be our hostess again. All these different classes. We have like 20 slots for teenagers, high school and college students, trying to get young adults interested, talk to their grandparents now, talk to their parents, try and fill in the blanks. We want them to know who they are. You don't have nothing to be ashamed of because you're African American, or that you have white ancestors, or white ancestors have black ancestors. Nothing to be ashamed about. And so these are some of the classes. My nephew's going to teach beginning genealogy. He's like a 5th grade teacher, plus a minister with a deep booming voice. And he's only 24. I was praying one day, I said, God, I can't keep all this stuff in my head anymore. I got bins everywhere. Nobody in my family's going to take this. What am I going to do? I need some help. 3 hours later, Jordan calls me. He said, I got a question to ask you. It's okay. He said, can I be the next family genealogist? I was so stunned. I was like, yes! That kid has taken off with it. So it's going to be excellent. I mean, we've got Sacramento Sisters Quilt Collective's going to be there. Dr. Crooks, Monica Crooks, I believe is her name. She's an artist as well. She's a dentist. She's going to have her display on stage. We're going to have artifacts of African Americans from slavery to the present. The Buffalo Soldiers are going to be there. And Vicky's going to be there with her, tell us what it is.
California Black pioneers who were here before 1870,
Yeah.
who made a real difference in the state.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to be good. It's only $23. I'm not sure what the deadline is.
Already got mine.
Okay, good. I think she's already registered too. And so as of today, as of yesterday, there was like, I think, 97 people who've already registered. And we still got several more weeks to go. And I wanted to show you too. Where's that suitcase? Up there. Open one of those boxes. Okay. This is me. That's my website, glasstreebooks.com. And I write on diversity, genealogy, and Christian books. I'm almost done, okay. This one right here, for all you Christians in the room, I wrote this as a play. I have 100 scriptures in it. Not that you can tell. You have to really know your Bible to know it. And every character is either a scripture or the exact opposite of it. I have the 10 Commandments in there, but they're the exact opposite of the 10 Commandments. So where it says, thou shalt not steal, somebody in the church is stealing from the offering. Oh, okay. That book right there, that's our skin colors, our clothing, featuring Jan and Demetria. Jan is my best friend Jay from when we were 10 years old, and I'm the other one. And the first book is, okay, it's over there. It's called The Great Mysterious Adventure. That's how the girls first find out about diversity. And it's kind of fictional. They don't know if it's real or not because they're such animal collectors, and they run into a talking blue rabbit. And they ask him, why is your color blue? And he says, because if I didn't have on the color blue, I'd be naked. You know, they're like, what? So that gave me the thought to write about our skin colors, our clothing. Okay. And they're trying to explain it to their classmates. It's hilarious. We were down here reading it and just laughing our heads off. We were proofing it because we had it printed here. And then I wrote A Mulatto Slave, that one about Peter Hunt. I put in there all of my notes and resources as though I was writing a paper. So, you know, people will tell you you're lying. Whatever you find out, somebody will say it's a lie. It's not the truth. So I put it in there where I got all of the information. I've got his pension records in there. I've got a timeline of history in there. What was happening around the world, around when baseball started. All of it happened in Peter's lifetime of 1844 to 1915. The car, the telegraph, the telephone, all these things happened in his lifetime. Well, how did that affect us? And instead of writing it about him, I wrote it as though he's talking. So you want to know what was going on when I was a slave? Okay, that kind of thing. I have pictures in there. I know who I am on the family tree, a genealogy guide for children. I just kind of need to redraw it. I have a creation story told by the wise and majestic oak tree. And the oak tree tells them all when they were born. Oh, there they are. If anybody needs a flyer. And you can also you can register online too. And then I have a Y. Stewart book for children only, and it's based on creation. The actual creation story. It's like God said what on day one? Let there be light. That's an example for us that we too should give first. God gave first to us by creating peace out of chaos, and we need to do that too, whether it's with our money or anything else. And so, wait. Oh, okay. And for all you Christians in here, if you don't think genealogy is important, in the Bible, starting with Matthew, it talks about the genealogy of Jesus. And it goes all the way back to Adam. So it's important to know your genealogy, because that gives you extra confidence. That gives your kids confidence. You can hold your head up high, because I know who I am. That's why I named it. I know who I am on the family tree. Our kids, well, I don't have kids. We don't have children. But all my brother's children, they all know their genealogy back to the 8th century. Because I found somebody online who was looking for their relatives who came over here, one of those 3 brothers. And I wait till about the 3rd email before I say I'm African American. But I temper it with I'm African American, Indian, and Irish. So the guy in Ireland said, oh, my triracial cousin. He says, since you told me what happened to them, I'm going to tell you where they came from. And he took me all the way back to the 8th century. So, like I said, I have cousins in Australia. He took part of my book and put it in his book, his history book, and the end. There's all kinds of stories, trust me. So you'll be able to verify history, your family, and everything else, and it's a great ride. It's a fun run.